All right, the first question will be for Roxanne, and then we'll go in order down the row here. It will be 2 minutes for the answer, and we'll be a little more aggressive waving the sign in about 30 seconds to go, so you'll know you got it going on. All right, so Roxanne, earlier this month, the county board discussed the budget plan for this coming fiscal year, and it's essentially flat over last year's budget with no tax increases. But in describing the proposed county budget, Brent Robertson, the county director of management and budget, said, quote, "I think it reached that critical point when we are impacting our services negatively and demand for services are continuing to increase," unquote. There was an implicit concern that key services would suffer based on the lack of new funding. What is your overall opinion of the current budget proposal, and is there a trigger of some kind that would convince you that a tax increase of some kind is necessary for the county?
Well, first of all, the current budget is around, I believe what I heard, it was around $192 million. And our debt ratio to that's about 10%. I had a long discussion with the Director of Finance and Clay Goodman about this just recently. There are a lot of things that we need to focus on. I think the main things that we need to remember is the government's role is to finance public works, public education, and public service. We have to make sure our police officers are paid. We need to make sure that our teachers are well paid. And we need to make sure that we're safe and that our county, make sure we have trash pickup and stuff, and those necessities. The budget has a broad range of things in it that are so hard to explain and discuss. There's also projections out there that we can't even begin to think of. I sat in a work meeting with the Board of Supervisors the other night, and they're introducing the new stormwater management program. And honestly, that blew me away. What they're going to require, the EPA and the DEQ are going to require our county to make sure that nothing drains into stormwater drainage but water. Just think of that. What that's going to require a small business, what's that going to require a current business. So the budget is a small thing in compared to what they're going to eventually require of us. So it's very hard to actually come up with a concrete answer to that, Chip. I really can't answer that in a concrete way. There's so many variables to that.
Is there? Can you envision a scenario where the tax increase is necessary?
I'm not about to say that we need to raise taxes. I think in order to increase revenue, we need to lower taxes on businesses so they can actually stay in business.
Okay.
So I don't think we should raise taxes at all. No.
All right, Mike.
I appreciate you clarifying the question with the second question, but I wasn't so sure we were.
Sure. So what is your overall opinion of the current budget proposal, just in general, and is there a trigger, something that could happen that would convince you that a tax increase of some kind is necessary?
Got it. Yeah, overall the budget, our budget is like they've always done budgets, that they take last year's figure and add or subtract to it. That's assuming that last year's budget was a good budget. I have a little trouble with that philosophy because I never think any budget's good every year. There is a different way of looking at it. It's what they call zero base. That's where you go back in and say, well, what do I need? What are my priorities? What things do I have to have? And then how much money do I need to accomplish that goal? That's the way I like to see budgets run. Not based on last year's number, but what do we need now? So really the budget should focus on prioritization. What's important? And we get into the role of government in that discussion and what services the government provides. At some point in time, after everything's prioritized, we know what's important, we know what's not important. Then you have to make that question. Do I want more of a good thing? Do I want more of what's most important? If people say yes, they do. If we've got the money, you got to do what you got to do. My first reaction is always try to keep the government as small as possible. Then, once we got the government down where it's meeting our needs, I think everybody's happy. I don't think there's a trigger for raising taxes. Usually the government wants to use all the money they can get as opposed to the money that we give them. So I can't think of a trigger that would cause to raise taxes. Unless the citizens said, we want more of what we're getting, a higher priority. And if that's the case, if you want more, whatever's most important, if we don't have the money, role is provided for.
Okay, Joe?
Thank you. Is there something to trigger raising taxes? No. 12 years I was on the board, we lowered the nominal tax rate 3 times. Now, you say my house went up in value. Well, I understand that, but at least we did something. We did something that nowhere else around here did. Everyone else was raising taxes. Everyone's raising taxes now. That capital plan I talked about, Ms. Chrisley says the debt's 10% of our budget. Well, that's not exactly right. If we have $200 million, I didn't actually look at the budget, but if we have $200 million in debt, the government doesn't pay 8.5% interest rate because they're tax exempt and we're AAA, which is important. We are AAA rated, we're paying 3.5% on our debt. So the $17 million of debt service that Ms. Chrisley is referring to, about $10 million of that is actually debt repayment, which I think debt repayment is something we all like around here. So now we look at $7 million, which is our true interest cost every year. That $7 million translates, if we followed our capital plan, that $7 million or $8 million, whatever that number is, that translates into, I don't know, real estate's $1.09. That translates to 5 cents on the real estate. Well, guess what? If we just stayed disciplined and didn't have debt, that's 5-6 cents off the real estate rate. Or conversely, that's business, professional, occupational license tax revenues on a given year. Which, by the way, while I was on the board, I tried to develop support to looking at the way we do business, professional, occupational license tax. Many of you may not be aware, I do have some businesses, but many of you probably are not aware, the business, professional, occupational license tax is not a flat fee. It is a $50 base if you're under a certain amount of revenue. But then, once you hit that revenue threshold, you go to a percent, whether it's 20 cents on 100 for a retail or 58 cents on 100 for a professional service. And I don't know these numbers off the top of my head, they're in the right general frame range. But the problem is, when you make $99,900, you're paying 50 bucks. You make $1 more, you're paying $580. And that's not good effective tax service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Al?
All right, the answer to your question is no on the taxes. I'll tell you what, to me, it is unconscionable to think that $179 million being pulled out of Roanoke County pockets of the families of Roanoke County is not enough to run the county. Plus, you have the other money that comes from the federal and the state. But we need this plan. And here's the plan that I would do. An immediate hold on the Vinton Library. The fact that we can even be debating the Vinton Library in the paper, and they're talking about the fact this is a done deal, is unbelievable to me that we would put another $9 million of debt on top of the $200 million of debt that we started the year off. So I think the first thing is, no to the tax question. You put that Vinton Library on hold immediately. And the next thing you do is you call in all the department heads. We need to talk to all the department heads in Roanoke County and say, here's the deal. We need everybody a reduction of 1% to 2% in your budgets. You know, we always seem to focus on what government needs. And I look around at the families, and when we knock on the doors of houses, there are people, and I don't know if the government really realizes this, there are people that are without jobs, that haven't had an increase in their job for 5, 6, 7 years, and they're just lucky to have a job. Then you talk to the county government, and they're talking about the fact, oh, this poor county person hasn't had a raise in 2 or 3 years. Folks, we need to focus back to the people of Roanoke County and say, what do they need? And government needs to limit itself to the basic things that government is supposed to do. First priority, get rid of this debt. It is killing us. It is keeping our taxes high because somebody has to pay for that debt.
You're here.
All right.